Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast with Benji Naesen, here for the recap of Vuelta Espana Stage 13, brought to you by our partner Locol. If you haven't checked out their kit yet, they focus on road performance only, and they provide their kits to Bahrain McLaren in the pro peloton. And I think Lando Norris, the F1 driver, I think on Instagram I saw him sporting a Bahrain McLaren kit the other day as well. Maybe we can get him on the podcast at a later date. I think someone suggested that on Twitter, but Locol have been a supporter of the podcast for all through the Giro and now the Vuelta. Benji and I both love wearing the kits. If you want to check them out, www.locol.cc, link in the show notes and the description. But today was an ITT, and you know how we do ITTs around here? We just say the results because we can't remember the chronological order. The profile is from Muros to Mirador de Ezzaro d'Umbria, 34 Ks, and a polarised climb once again, or it's polarised stage, I should say once again. First 31.5 Ks or so are pretty flat, some rolly climbs, but for all intents and purposes, we're talking like 45 Ks, 47 Ks now, maybe 50 flat. Couple of intermediate time checks at 12 and 24.5, and then we have a 1.8k climb to Mirador de Ezzaro at 14.2% average gradient, it's telling me, and that seems to be the case. We've got 15.5% for the middle kilometre. It's 16%. So I don't know where the Vuelta finds these climbs. They're kind of like this is like Hillbrook Road. If Brisbane listeners will know, if you did a TT from maybe Upper Brookfield Road out to then the end of end of Gold Creek Road, went up Hillbrook Road, it's like that. So really steep. Don't know where the Vuelta finds these. But the favourites for today, according to Benji's tweets, which once again eerily accurate, were Roglic, Cavagna, Ian Garrison, Rob Stannard, I don't know about that one, Nelson Oliveira, Will Barter with 2 paella things, Hugh Carthy, Jonas Aguirre, Van Moor, and Ivo Oliveira with 1 paella thing. Roglic and Cavagna had 3 paellas. But it was, who was who was on the top step today, Benji? He's back.
Yes, he is. He was wearing a different helmet this time, and I think that's what brought him forward today. Primoz Rogthicc was the winner of today's time trial. It was a time trial where there was a lot of stress at the start, whether he was going to collapse again, because it looked like other favorites were doing just as good, to be honest, and it looked like it was towards the end of the race that he pulled the race towards himself. And in all intents and purposes, I think that he rode a good time trial today, and it secured quite a distance on the competitors that he needed to keep behind him. We said yesterday that we were thinking about 30 seconds on Carthy and perhaps 1 minute and a half on Carapaz for Roglic, and it came near that. I think it was 26 seconds on Carthy in the end, and he got let me check to be sure because I don't want to say anything wrong here. He was
49 seconds ahead of Carapaz.
Yes, 49 seconds on the road. And the major part of that was happening on the second part, because obviously it ends on that climb. That climb actually peaks on 29%, apparently, because at the top it says that if you go down, there's a descent that peaks at 29%. So we didn't see it that well because, they switched from rider to rider, but there was a part in there in that second or third kilometer that goes up to 29%, and perhaps that's why these percentages, these averages, look a bit more than they actually seem to have been, because they climbed up that relatively quickly, I'd say, and perhaps it's because it's a bit more of a spiky climb in the sense that it's got perhaps 13, 12%, and then one section at 20%, then goes back to 12, 13. It looks like that if I look at the profile that is actually zoomed in on smaller sections than just 1 kilometer, and you've got just very steep spikes, and I think that's the real difficulty on this climb, because it's hard to find your rhythm and keep it going on a climb that switches percentages every few hundred meters. So in general, really good ascension by Roglic, also the fastest ascension on the road. He was ahead of Dan Martin as the fastest climber. I'm surprised to see that Dan Martin rode that last section so fast, basically saving himself his 4th place in GC at this very moment, because a rider that did disappoint for me was Enric Mas, but perhaps I should talk about the actual full results of the ITT first before we dive into anything further.
I'll go through some of the preliminary times and we'll build sort of how it was developing. So Will Barter set the quickest times at the first and second intermediate time checks, ahead of Nelson Oliveira on both of them. Roglic was behind Hugh Carthy on the first intermediate time check by about a second and a half. Carapaz was only 4 seconds behind Roglic at that 12k time check. Roglic then went in the second time check, a second ahead of Carthy, and now 20 seconds, 19 seconds ahead of Carapaz, but still I think 17 seconds behind Will Barter and Nelson Oliveira. And then Roglic obviously did the climb much, much quicker than Barter and Oliveira, setting a time of 46.39, about half a second ahead of CCC's Will Barter, who I believe is out of contract for next year. So that was a real shame, him not winning the stage. Benji, do you have... So I'll read out the top 10. I'll let Benji get the climb times together. The top 10 were, Roglic first, Barter a second back, Nelson Oliveira 10 seconds behind Roglic, Hugh Carthy 25 seconds behind Roglic, Armirail, FDJ rider, who's done quite a good job actually for Godot, I think, on the stage. Godot won. He was in the break with him, was, now my maths is being tested, 40 seconds behind Roglic, Castanedo 45 back, Carapaz 49 seconds behind Roglic on the road, 39 behind on GC, then Cavagnard, De La Cruz and Southerland round out the top 10. Notable GC candidates outside of the top 10, or not their times, I think was, Martin was like a minute and something back on Roglic, a minute and 29 back. It might be easier if I go to the results now. I'm looking at all the intermediate time splits. Martin a minute and 17 behind Roglic, and Enric Mas, I'm not sure if you already said his exact time, a minute and 43 back. And also the man we had on the podcast, Vlasov, 2:17 back. That's not good at all, to be honest. So that's not a great time. Chris Froome, 5 minutes 50 back. Whether he was going full gas or not, I'm not sure. But have you got, Benji, the climbing times? Because I've got a point I'd like to make about Dan Martin.
Yes, I've got relative climbing times in the sense that I've got the time between the second intermediate and the finish. Obviously, there's a bit of a flat part there, but there is no intermediate at the bottom of the final ascension. So without actually checking on a video how long they climbed over it, I'm pretty sure some other people are going to do that, but I haven't had the time for that, nor the motivation, to be honest. I've got the time between intermediate 2 and the finish, and Roglic was the best rider there with 16 minutes and 5 seconds. And Dan Martin was second in that and lost only 16 seconds to Roglic. So I think that the majority of the climbing speeds was towards Dan Martin, and even perhaps he climbed similarly to Roglic, knowing that that flat part before the climb that I still count in this second intermediate to finish distance is advantageous to Roglic. So that would mean that on the climb itself, Martin must have been climbing at a relatively similar, speed than Roglic was. So what is the point you're trying to make about Dan Martin?
Obviously, his flat TT position is dog shit, and he was doing a massive negative split and he looked visibly bad on the flat section, just moving all over the place. But then, I reckon he's done the climb quicker than Roglic, I reckon. And the 16 seconds he lost was probably in the flatter section that formed a large part of that second intermediate to the final. So it just goes to show these results that you can improve your TT. Like, do you think Benji Carapaz being 49 seconds behind Roglic, today is a win for Carapaz, in my view. That is a really, really good result for him. Do you think he's improved? Do you think his TT's improved, Carapaz, to be able to do that, to beat Remy Cavagna by 9 seconds? I know there's a steep climb, but still, to come 7th on this stage, I think shows an improvement from Carapaz.
I believe it's a combination of both. because you've got Carapaz that has become better at time trialing. This could be a one-time thing. This could be very consistent in the future. We don't know that. We can't base that off one day of performance. We know that Carthy's overperforming as well compared to his past, and according to Fathers, was training on time trial quite a lot. And we see from the history of Roglic, and I've said this multiple times on the podcast before, I've had people getting triggered by it, but that's also fun to watch. But I believe that Roglic over the last years has focused a lot on his climbing as well, obviously, and has become a much better climber than 2-3 years ago. And as a consequence, also lost a bit of the drive for dominant time trials. Because if you look at 3 years ago, only that time trial at the end of the tour looked pretty bad. Outside of that, all the rest of his time trials were pretty amazing. Last year as well, he was riding good time trials, but he was also riding those Grand Tour time trials against competition that is not at top level. He only won that Giro time trial, the middle one, because Campenaerts had that bike change issue that Lantern keeps laughing about when I bring it up. And in the end, if Campenaerts didn't have that bike change issue, Roglic would not have won that time trial, despite it being an uphill time trial. So I believe that we've seen this transition throughout 2 years now where the time trials of Roglic are slowly but surely moving down. This year it's very different, though. I feel like despite winning today, his performance was less than one would expect of Roglic, or perhaps his opponents, his competitors. I just combined that word in components, perfect. His opponents, either they overperform or he underperforms. And I think it's a combination of both, not per se underperforming for Roglic, but perhaps being less good at time trial as a consequence of being a much better climber, because Roglic was not near as dominant in previous years as he is this year in climbing, obviously in Grand Tours. In 1 week races last year, perhaps he was on a similar level in time trialing as well as he should be, because I feel like in 1 week races last year, his time trials were pretty on point. And when it comes to Grand Tours, and if it's a time trial in the third week, he slowly but surely loses that drive for it. So either he, over the years, has gotten worse in it a tiny bit because it's clearly enough to win a time trial, or he has the disadvantage of not being that great in time trials towards the end of a Grand Tour. And if you look at the last year's Vuelta time trials, he was winning them. He was winning them comfortably, but it wasn't against competition that you would say, oh, these guys are going to become world championship time trial. Cavagna was up there, but he was not near as good last year as he is this year. Cavagna is a time trialist. If you've got Nelson Oliveira also performing well last year, getting fifth on a minute, we can compare that to what was brought today by Oliveira and also Roglic. Thinking about it, Oliveira comes in third on 10 seconds only of Roglic. You could say that the time trial fits Roglic less with the whole flat section at the start, but I'd say the climb at the end should counterbalance that quite easily with the gradients that they go on. So Oliveira, honestly, on paper, really good time trial, and William Barta as well. Barta being a rider that I put in that to Paella thingy on my Twitter because I thought that he could do well because he's been slowly but surely growing. I didn't expect this. I gotta be honest. I was perhaps expecting a surprise top 5. Getting second is pretty wonderful. The reason I put Rob Stannard in there, by the way, was because he did well at a Giro U23 time trial. But apparently today he didn't really go for it. It was his teammate Edmondson that rode pretty decent at the start, but he fell through the rankings as the time trialists keep going. But in general, do you feel like Roglic did what we expected, or do you think that he was slightly underperforming towards what you expected, or do you expect him to win with like half a minute on a Carthy and a minute on a Carapaz, for example?
I think there's 20 to 25 seconds that aren't there that I thought would be there, but still ultimately got the job done. I know everyone's maybe going to focus on the stage win, so our criticism sounds a bit ridiculous, but I'm more, and I think you are too, Benji, more looking at the gaps to his competitors as the yardstick for measuring, not just, so, maybe if Prime Geraint Thomas or Rowan Dennis or Dumoulin was here today, or Wout van Aert or something, maybe he loses the time trial by a minute or whatever. That's okay, fine. That's irrelevant. Or Barta beats him by 30 seconds. I only care about the gaps to his competitors, and beating Nelson Oliveira by 10 seconds. And I actually think Roglic used to be much better on the flat in the TT, and even in the Tour de France ITT, he lost the time in the latter half and on the climb. He lost a lot of time to, say, Port on the climb. So I thought I always thought today he was going to do the same time as Carapaz on the climb, and Martin, and even maybe Carthy, because to be honest, the overall climbing level between all these guys has been about the same on a pure watts per kilo basis over an extended climb, excluding having teammates, etc. They've pretty much been the same level throughout this Vuelta, except Roglic has had a better kick in the sprint finishes. He's had that descent finish, etc. But in terms of like just a watts test across 8 minutes or 7 minutes, however long the climb was, they're all pretty much neck and neck. But I always thought he's much better on the flat and a bit of an engine on the flat. And maybe the first half of the flat section, him being on the same time as Carthy, that was a little bit surprising to me, but still a very, very good performance by Carthy and a very good performance by Carapaz. I think Roglic paced this pretty conservatively. He knew he didn't have to, we knew there was no Pogačar here, right? So he didn't have to do anything obscene today. He didn't have to do his best performance to go into red with a 30-plus second lead. And I think he went into the time trial knowing that, got the job done, 39-second lead on Carapaz. Will it make a difference, him having a 39-second lead versus a minute and 10-second lead? Given that if there's no breakaway tomorrow, I expect him to take a few more bonus seconds too. I'm not sure. I think for Carapaz to win, he's got to. We'll preview in the next couple of days in a second. But yeah, I think all of them are going to be happy. Roglic, Carthy, Carapaz. I mean, GC right now, Roglic first, 39 ahead of Carapaz. Carthy 47 back. Big gap now to Martin, 1 minute 42 back. An even bigger gap in fifth to Enric Mas, 3:23. Let's talk about Enric Mas and Movistar. Benji, I hope they get fined. What were they doing?
They started the climb, and obviously we knew from beforehand that during the race, the organizers had put in the jury report that any bike change from a time trial bike to a road bike must be done in the preset zone on the climb by the race organizers. So they had a bit of a section with a line where the dudes that push the rider can't cross to prevent any cheating and any guys that push their riders too long. And what Mas did was, he rode past that section, and I was like, okay, yeah, he's not going to switch, which to me seems like a horrendous mistake, but I guess we'll give him a chance. He goes around the corner and takes a position, perhaps a clever place to have a bike change, because they just start the climb and they are pushed into this brake directly. They need to brake to try and switch their bike in that zone, while you could use that momentum to try and switch in the corner perhaps, and perhaps Mas's idea of switching in the corner instead was an actual good idea. The problem is, we don't know if it's allowed. Nobody has a clue. Nobody has a clue if it's an enforceable rule. And Enric Mas decided to, instead of having a bike by the side of the road in the zone, change in that corner with a bike on top of the car. Now, it's really confusing whether this is allowed or not. I really don't mind that it happened. If they found a plot hole in the rules that wasn't specified, then I'm all for it, because I like that. And that's why I kind of find this a funny thing. Now, all in all, despite that happening, I don't think Mas had a good time trial compared to the ones he had all year and in previous years. So, all in all, a bad TT, but do you have anything to add towards that bike change thingy?
I mean, it's probably cost him, or it's either cost or saved him 1 or 2 seconds. I think the benefit of changing in the better spot is negated by having to take the bike off the back of the car, and you're also running the risk of being a foul of some rule you don't know. So yeah, I think it's dumb either way for them to be doing that. And it'd be kind of mean if they got fined by the commissaires, docked a couple of, 10 seconds or something because he already lost a minute 43 and he's 3 minutes 23 back. And, I was defending Movistar in my ITV Sport video, but I did think it was kind of funny what they did in the ITT today. What about Benji with the, if any of you have watched the ITT, in this zone that Benji mentioned, there was a line where the mechanic couldn't keep pushing afterwards, like a long jump, like a void. I don't even know what the correct term is. Like a long jump, triple jump, javelin, where if you put your foot on that line or across the line, it's a foul throw or a jump. What was I don't know if there's any actual punishment for it, because I know that Will Barter's mechanic got pretty close to it. There's nothing in the rules about this. So imagine if Roglic got docked. His Jumbo-Visma mechanic got pretty close too, got docked 10 to 15 seconds, brought Carapaz within 25 seconds. I mean, we waited a little bit. I haven't seen anything on Twitter or anything, so I don't think, and there shouldn't be. It really should make a difference, but we haven't seen anything of that nature. But moving on to the rest of the week, we'll preview stage 14 properly at the end. But now that we know these gaps after the ITT, I personally think Jumbo-Visma thought they were going to be having a minute plus on Carapaz going into this last few stages, and this wasn't the actual plan. And I mean, if you add up all of Roglic's bonus seconds, etc., he'd be pretty much on the same time as Carapaz. So I don't think there's much difference in their climbing ability, and Carapaz dropped him on Angleroo. But I think there's two stages, Benji, that they can be damaged. Tomorrow, I think Roglic might take some bonus seconds, but people are always already focusing on stage 17. And because we didn't do a rest day preview, we should probably talk about this. Stage 15, 231 Ks. No massive climbs, nothing too bad. Do you think all those climbs are too easy for Ineos to try and launch something? I'm more thinking it's a long stage. There could be a moment in that last 50 Ks that they could try team up with Mike Woods and Hugh Carthy and try something. Out of the question or possible?
It's gonna be difficult for that to happen, I think. Just in general, Roglic would need bad luck or something to get behind, because on these smaller hills, Jumbo would have the team to control anything that happens in the peloton. Vingegaard was really good. He might have jinxed Roglic in general by saying this morning that unless we fuck up, Roglic wins the Vuelta. But which is a horrible statement to say if you're not sure about your future. But looking at this stage, they could fuck up, but I don't see it happening unless it's an outside factor influencing it. I don't see Roglic collapsing on a hill stage like this. The only difference that, I just don't think Ineos is good enough to do something crazy. And perhaps Carthy might try because, I don't know, it's difficult. I think Carthy might just play the card of having Covatia to try and drop people, but Covatia is not enough, I would say, to drop Roglic. So I think you indeed can't look solely to stage 17, but looking at the stages before that, it's going to be pretty tough to put pressure to Roglic. So I don't know. It's generally going to be hard for any competitor to try and put some fire under the legs of Primoz Rogthicc here, because right now he does have a solid gap in GC. Perhaps not the gap that people were expecting, but you've got a gap of 39 seconds on Carapaz, 47 seconds on Carthy. Even with the whole jacket parade on Formigal, he did not lose more than 30 seconds. So, yeah, he's going to need an outside factor to bash into Roglic to be able to drop him, I think. I think it's going to be really hard to get Roglic out of that red jersey. It's always possible. I've said it before. You said it before. Everything can happen in a Grand Tour, definitely towards the end of a Grand Tour. But it's rather unlikely. Looking at indeed stage 15, I don't think 15 is going to be enough.
On Formigal, he lost 50 seconds to Carthy, so stuff can happen pretty quickly. But yeah, I think this Welter is. I think it's pretty much over, to be honest, because
Same.
like I mean, the way they've designed this course, the course, there's no the rider that will be leading in the ITT just has such a strong position, and all these stages coming up kind of suit Roglic more. They're all the stages he's dominated so far in this Vuelta. Midi mountain finishes and Covertia. Covertia's got him written all over it. I mean, I don't know the weather forecast. If that's good weather, he'll be winning that stage, unless they let if they let a break go, sure. But 11Ks at 7%, nothing crazy.
Fake news climb though.
It's got some steeper sections. Yeah, but he's not been. It's nothing like Angleroo or anything like that.
I agree.
So, it's easier to control. Drafting matters more. It's really set up to suit Roglic. And even that stage 15 I mentioned, he's better than these guys in a sort of Liège hilly style stage. So again, don't really see any issues for him there. Stage 16s. Looks like Milan San Remo just with an additional climb and 163 Ks. That's a sprint stage in my view. And then stage 18, or a break stage, but no GC action. And then stage 18 is the celebration in Madrid. We don't have 19, 20, 21. We've only got 5 stages left. My math serves me correctly. And yeah, I don't see falling short of a mechanical or something, or a crash. I think this Welter is very much Primoz Roglic is to lose. And that's what I think Lanterne Rouge was saying on Twitter the other day when he saw the Tour de France 2021 route announcement. And we will be doing a podcast after the Welter's done, in depth, analysing that route, don't you worry. But, we'll wait for the Vuelta to be done before we do that. We're hitting you with a lot of content all the time. But one of the things LFR was saying is that the way courses are designed, it really makes mechanicals and crashes matter a lot more because the time gaps are so small. And I guess the jacket thing in the bad weather, I mean, it's good that I guess Roglic lost a lot of time in the sense that that's not something where I feel sorry for him. But if he has a crash or a mechanical, a puncture, he can lose a 35 to 40 second gap. And equally, Carthy could lose second on GC because he has a puncture, and there's really no stages in the last week to gain 30 seconds back. Like, realistically, there's no opportunity to do that. So that's sometimes an issue with the stage. I really do wish stage 17 they'd made a 200 kilometer proper mountain stage. I think they've made a mistake with the design there, because then we'd really be thinking, okay, Roglic has been dropped by Carthy and Carapaz, and they've actually put genuine time onto him in Angleroo and on Magal. Something could actually happen there. This is not over. But hey, nothing is over till it's over. But yeah, what do you think, Benji? What do you give Roglic's probability of winning? I've got it at like 90% right now.
I've got it at about 95%. If there's one spot where I see a potential mechanical happening, like written in the stars for somebody, it's in the Covertia stage. You've got a bit of a cobble part into a city with about 18 kilometers to go, just for the historical sakes of that city that they're doing it. And if there's a cobble part in a stage, it is destined to have at least one person that punctures on it. Port was on that gravel section in the Tour de France, and I think there's going to be someone that has to puncture on that. But I hope it's nothing important. Perhaps like a random domestique of Jumbo to try and make the last 2 kilometers better. That would be pretty cool. But all in all, I just don't find Covertia too threatening to Roglic, indeed, like you said. No. So I think if anything has to happen, it has to happen outside of Covertia stage. And looking at the profile, it's going to be really hard to force that for a team like Ineos. And they're going to need something special to make it happen. And I hope that something arrives that makes it entertaining. I don't hope bad luck towards Roglic for sure, because he's in a position where he deserves to be in. And as a consequence, I will not be wanting him to have a mechanical or anything to try and make the race more entertaining. But I do hope that some factor in the race, hopefully nothing related to bad luck, can influence the race into an entertaining final few days. That's what I've got in my mind. But all in all, looking at the stage of tomorrow, because let's take a look at who we've got as our picks for this one. We've got a stage that has the first half, just small hills, ups and downs, nothing categorized. In the middle, we do have one climb that is basically the same size of all the climbs that came before, but it's suddenly, well, categorized, 3.8%, so nothing major, 8.8 kilometers, but it looks like it's a bit of a fake news climb, although, yeah, first kilometer is 9.9% average, and the average of the last 6 kilometers is 2%.
Why wouldn't they just categorize the first 3Ks?
Oh my god, that is not a climb, that is a kilometer. That is the Alto de Escairon, and then we go downwards, have an intermediate sprint that nobody really looks at, and then we've got the Alto de Guitarra, and, well, that's 3.9% average, so that's pretty great. We've got kilometers of 1.7% in there, so we love these climbs. Absolutely love it. Then they go down, and with about, let's say, 50k to go, they arrive on this plateau section of like 30 kilometers, 20 kilometers. I'd be interested to see if there's any opportunities for echelons. Most likely not, but you never know. I'm just looking for entertainment in these stages. Then we start the final proper climb of the day, the Alto de Abeleira. Well, I'm saying proper climb, but it's 4.2% average, so yeah, it's got kilometers of 3.8, 3.7, 3.9, 1 kilometer of 5, so that enlightens it a bit, but it pretty much shows that if you survive this climb and then you've got one steep hill in the end, and I'm saying steep, despite not knowing the gradient and I can't find it directly, so I'm afraid I can't tell you right now. I'll put it on my Twitter if I find the actual gradient on the last kilometer, but I think that this is the perfect stage for the man, the myth, the legend, Aramburu, the hill stage guru. And he's got climbs of 4%, then he has to get over that, because I believe in it. Alex Aramburu or Fraile. And I think it's going to be Aramburu, because Fraile is going to be an absolute failure tomorrow. Fraile is not making it, and therefore his teammate Aramburu will have to take over and bring it home for Astana. So that's my winner for stage 14. It has to happen.
I think there's going to be another breakaway with Guillaume Martin. He's going to be going for more KOM points. If there's a break, the sort of people I expect to be winning would be, I don't know if Fraile would get in the break, Benji. I mean, Wellens, Aronsman again, the Sunweb boys will be trying to get multiple riders in the breakaway. Martin will be there, obviously, trying to get KOM points, as I said. Cavagna, even, unless they leave them in the bunch to attack late. Out of the group, 1.1Ks at 6.5%. We're counting out Sam Bennett, aren't we? I am, at least. For this stage, I'm going with Roglic. Yeah, Roglic again, because I think he'll want more bonus seconds. So, yeah, Roglic or who's another quick man? Maybe Dion Smith. It's a little bit easier than the uphill sprint that Roglic won before. So, yeah, Roglic or Dion Smith, Baggioli as well will be up there. I have to look at the odds. So that's not actually betting advice, because I don't know the odds yet.
To be fair,
that's just who I think will be up there. Yeah, go on.
I think that we should not look past Bennett so easily. These climbs are 4%. We're saying it.
I just mean the finale.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, you just said it. I didn't read the profile correctly. 1.1 kilometer at 6.5%, but he's won on these kind of finishes already last year in Toledo, and that was not with a crash behind him, unlike in Burgos. So if Quick-Step controls this race and just keeps him up there on every single one of these hills, because we said it, it's 4%, 5% these climbs, and there's one peak of 9%, and the rest of that freaking climb is 1%.
It's all up and down. The first half is all up and down.
I believe in it. I'm going to play a Joker card, and I'm going to say that Sam Bennett survives and wins the stage. Aramburu is no more.
All right. I'm going to say he's not going to come in the top 10.
Okay.
Just because I think Carapaz, Martin, Carthy, they're all going to be fighting hard. I think there'll be GC teams leading it out quite hard. Magnus Cort, I think, as well. I think this suits,
good point,
as you said, Aramburu, Magnus Cort, and Dion Smith a little bit more than the other day. But yeah, I don't know. I don't see it for Bennett. I think he's going to clean up stage 16 and 18 though later on. But I'm not sure if we've said a lot of names. My pick for the stage is Dion Smith / Primoz Rogthicc. And I think Benji went with Sam Bennett, which is,
Yes.
we'll see how that
Although
goes.
I do want to say that I so much like your court pick that you said earlier, but I guess I'm stuck with Bennett now.
Also, will they be applying the 3-second rule tomorrow? Do we know if this is an expected bunch sprint? Because that will actually affect EF's strategy. Because if it is not a mass sprint, they will be riding 100% to keep Carthy in contention next to Roglic. And if it is the 3-second rule, apparently they will be leading out Magnus Cort. That's what they said they would have done differently the other day. I don't know what this is categorized as. We don't have the road book just open on our phones at all times. We'll have to check that. Make sure you check. Benji might put that in his Paella tweet tomorrow. If he finds that out, we'll probably just ask for Lanterne Rouge because he does have the road book open at all times. But that's our recap of stage 13 and preview of stage 14, a little bit of what we expect for the stage for the rest of the stages to come. The markets are not so bullish on Roglic as we are. They're giving Roglic a 70% chance of winning the Vuelta. Benji and I think that's quite low, given the stage profiles to come. I think it was a pretty exciting ITT once again today. I'm glad they all are pretty close in contention, but I do think those gaps are a little bit of an illusion. How have you rated, given that we didn't have the recap potty for the rest day, Benji, how have you rated this Vuelta so far for excitement?
I feel like the first week was the most exciting for me. I feel like the stages that were not necessarily looking like stages that will explode were exploding more than in the second week. I am not overly disappointed by the second week, but I did expect more from Lanterne Rouge. Despite it being quite a great stage, I rewatched the 2013 one yesterday, and oh my god, another heartbreak of Nibali again, but still, it was such a good stage, and it had tension from 6.5 to 7 kilometers from the top, while in this stage it was closed down to like 5.5 by Vingegaard. So it's a bit of a middle way street. I don't know what to say really. I think that it's been a good Grand Tour. I think that I'm also just kind of feeling it, that it's coming towards the end of the season and that we've had so many races, and I might be getting a bit saturated, honestly, which is a horrible thing to say, loving cycling, but with so many races in such a short period, it has influenced my hype towards the last week of this Vuelta, to be honest.
I have no idea. I agree with you. I have no idea why ASO announced the Tour de France route right now. It has to be the worst possible time for them to announce it. Like, we are flat out covering the rest of this Vuelta, which overlapped in the first week with the Giro, and everyone has just we're on the back end, everybody, of just 3 months straight of just non-stop cycling. And they've announced the Tour route in the last week of the Vuelta. It made no sense to me. Why not wait till the end of November when everyone's had a couple of weeks rest to, have your own slot where you're not competing with anything, or have it ready and announce it in the last week or the day after in Paris. They should maybe unveil it the day after Paris, build off that momentum there. Yes. I don't really understand their announcement now.
Yeah, but outside of that announcement, we also had some off-topic announcement. I would like to throw in the conversation a tiny bit here. We've heard from Wielerflits, which is a Dutch newspaper, that they're actually, the UCI is looking to suspend Groenewegen for 9 months, which means since August, so until the start of May next year. And obviously that's an unprecedented thing, I think, that someone gets suspended for the cause of a crash. I don't think that has happened too often in cycling, and perhaps hasn't happened enough yet. I'm a bit in between whether this is a good decision or not, knowing that it's based solely on the consequences of the crash and the fact that Ryaboshenko did something similar last year and caused a similar crash in the final sprint with also an injured rider, and he didn't even get relegated in that race. So it just shows the inconsistency of the UCI, but I'd be a bit hypocritical to counter that decision now, considering I'm always of the opinion that whatever inconsistencies in the past, you can't counter a current decision saying, oh, they didn't punish it in the past, so they shouldn't do it today. I'm against that. So saying it like this would be hypocritical for me. And therefore, I'm more for the fact of just get it all consistent in the future as a consequence of this. But I'm also scared of where the limits lie towards having this happen, and when does it become punishable of a rider to have caused the crash, and when is it not punishable? And it's a dangerous precedent despite being a good decision for me. I don't know, somewhat in that area.
I mean, I think if Groenewegen gets 9 months, Elisa Longo-Borghini should get 3 months for trying to put Van Vleuten into the barriers when they were riding for second and third in the World Champs. She received effectively no punishment at all. So, yeah, it shouldn't be fully outcomes-based. I think it is a dangerous precedent, but ultimately I thought Groenewegen should also get a very, very heavy sanction for what he did as well. So in a vacuum, I don't disagree with him being suspended for, I thought up to a year would have been fine too, to be honest. Because I have a hot take, and I think Wielerflits might have deleted that article, but it was pretty well, they left it up for a fair while. I don't know what their source was. Maybe they didn't think it'd be such a spicy topic, but I think sprint line deviations are worse than doping. So that's my hot take. I've said that a few times, maybe only privately, but I think they're cheating, but they also endanger your colleagues and can threaten their life. So doping only endangers yourself generally, except indirectly maybe it creates a culture where other people feel compelled to dope, and that also harms their health. But directly, you can be endangering other people, and it's also cheating to get a win. Same as doping, cheating to get a win. Just because one is premeditated, I guess, and one is on the bike in the heat of the moment. So maybe that's why we don't think of them as alike, but I think of them as closer to alike than maybe others do, particularly because there's a real safety aspect to it as well. And we've been, at least, I'm proud to say, Benji, we've been consistent, and people are probably sick of us harping on about it. We've been consistent in every single sprint where one of these happens. We have called it out since the inception of the podcast. Even in that AG3 Dax, the Brugge de Pan, was it? Or was it one of the women's race where Kopecky got chopped, or Julien Dore chopped someone? We called that out straight away. We said it on Twitter, etc. But yeah, it is a bit. I don't know what power the UCI actually has to suspend somebody like that, really. And maybe getting into that, more news, UCI powers, and we'll probably discuss this more at length in the off season. And I'm probably going to bring a video or write an article about this. The riders have created a new union, or someone's created a new union called the Riders. I should probably get the facts right if we're actually reporting news. Do you know what they're actually called, Benji, the new union?
The Riders Union, and it was created with quite a few riders and ex-riders. I know personally Steph Clementa worked on it, and that was a huge force behind the creation of this. Basically, it is because in the past we've obviously spoken about the protests, we've spoken about CPA and so forth, and all our conclusions came down to the communication and the issues of the CPA being a large cause of all the trouble. And that is one of the reasons that the Riders Union is stepping up to try and become a better version of that CPA, to try and take on the issues of the CPA. And I think that's the majority of what they are trying to do. And I guess we'll find out what they're going to do and if that's going to be all right. They've got a Twitter account if you want to follow it. It's at the Riders Union, and I think they're going to post there quite often. It's looking like they're pretty social media savvy people, so I'm not worried about that communication side of it.
I think Luke Eisinger, I'm not sure who he is, Benji. Yes. He's involved in it as well, in creating it. The Riders Union, from my perspective, looks very much to be the Scandinavian cyclists and also the people creating it as well are ex-Scandinavian or Dutch, Belgian cyclists. The Twitter account is even already followed by the Belgian Cycling Federation, I think, and the CPA is seen as like an Italian, French, Spanish preferred union. It's got Gianni Bugno as the head of the CPA. I'm not a big fan of the CPA. I've got to go and write I haven't collected my thoughts properly about this and the aims of the Riders Union, etc. I am in principle supportive of a proper union, and I don't think the CPA is that. I don't think it's an effectively functioning union. That being said, if the Riders Union is merely a collection of Dutch and Belgian cyclists and some Scandinavian ones, and they don't really have a proper quorum, then I'm not sure that's going to be very effective as a breakaway union either. And they might have been better off spending more time developing some broader support. But they're running, one of their platforms is the one rider, one vote policy for the CPA president and on various things. At the moment, voting is kind of like the UN is. I mean, talking about other dysfunctional institutions, votes are on like a nation base. So you vote in your nation's CPA representative, I think, or something, and then your nation gets to vote on issues, something like that. I don't know. It doesn't work. As I said, I haven't collected my thoughts on it properly, and I'll write them down. I'll put them in a video. It's long awaited because it's a hot topic. We had the protest the other day, which we didn't even cover because it was a bit of a joke. Re the red jersey stuff. We had the protest at Marbella, which wasn't a joke, but, and we discussed that properly. So this stuff has been reoccurring, and it's going to continue. This is going to continue to be a story. The Riders Union is like, these people didn't just create a Twitter account yesterday, right? They've been developing this in the background for quite a while, but we don't really know the extent of their reach just yet. I don't think they've really put out a mandate yet, but I think, in all fairness, in the off season, I'm going to reach out to Benji, as he said, has a relationship with Steph Clement. We'll get him on to the podcast if he wants. The platform is open to anybody in the CPA. I've just shit on you, but that being said, if you want to come on the podcast and discuss things, the platform is open to anybody in the CPA. Likewise in the UCI and in the Riders Union, or also any CPA representative riders or riders involved in this. Platform is open to discuss or put forward your side of the story, etc. We're not really affiliated with anybody. So I guess we're fair in that sense, Benji, because we talk to nobody, we're fair. Although, so maybe that's the best place to leave it as. Lots of stuff going on. Hope you enjoyed the Vuelta Stage 13 ITT. I thought it was pretty good to watch, and looking forward to this last week of the Vuelta. Thanks to Lecole for supporting the podcast. Check them out at www.lecole.cc, and we'll see you tomorrow.